Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Rick Radowski of WeAreChange.org. And what the holy cannoli is happening today? And it's not only just Facebook that is down, it's also the Dow, which is down 500 points. The crypto market is down incredibly, with Bitcoin going down to $4,250, and some people saying that the number could go down to as little as $1,000 per Bitcoin, which is incredible news, shocking news to a lot of people, not of course to the people who have been paying attention. But with this recent plunge, we're going to get into what's happening economically, and to talk about that plus a lot more, we have Kenneth Amaduri. He's the chief editor and founder of CrushTheStreets.com. And Kenneth, what's going on here? Because it seems like a bloodbath all around through conventional markets and also the crypto markets today.
Well, first of all, Luke, thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. Absolutely. It's kind of getting crazy out there. I mean, we're seeing obviously Bitcoin and the cryptos get smashed. I mean, we were kind of comfortable at the $6,000 range there with Bitcoin, and then it fell through that here. But yeah, starting off with the stocks, it's really interesting what's going on with FANGs. I mean, the FANG stock specifically, their market cap alone is about $3 trillion, and they have a huge influence on the overall S&P 500 and Dow Jones. So sure, what took these markets, or what was responsible for these markets going up, is certainly going to be a major factor on what brings them down. And we've been in a real volatile stage as of recently, where markets have kind of been up and down and very volatile. And, I liken that to, markets need to be growing. It's very uncomfortable for markets to just be flatlining. It's kind of like being in a room with a bunch of people, and there's a bunch of silence, and all of a sudden you hear a loud noise and everyone panics at once. And the FANG stocks pulling back, trade wars, a Greek crisis, Venezuela, all of these things are these loud noises that's spooking people. And I think that we're going to continue to see this volatility move forward here. And it boils down to interest rates. It's not really about the asset prices. It's the interest rates. And this is what's really starting to put the pressure on a lot of things as it pertains to the economy.
Well, there's a lot of things to be spooked about, especially if you look at the bigger numbers, not only with the interest rates, but with the debt that the United States is in, and how artificially inflated and paved over our last economic crisis was to what's happening now, and there not being a correction. Now, a lot of people are saying that this is what's happening today specifically, especially with big tech companies, whether it's Amazon, Facebook, or Google, that it's pretty much very similar to what's happening with the original tech bubble. People are saying that this is going to be a tech bubble 2.0. Do you think this is going to happen, or do you think there's going to be another kind of correction moving forward from this?
That's an interesting thing. I would almost consider the first tech boom that we saw, the dot-com bubble, to be like the 2013 rise in cryptos, the really early stage, when the dot-com era was just getting started. And now we're in like the 2017 hype of, all of these tech companies that have really built themselves out, that rose obviously through the ashes of the first dot-com bust, but have really built itself out. So we're a little further down the line. So I don't think it's going to be as early stage and in that sense a speculative boom and bust. I think it's going to be a little more resilient than that. But absolutely, I mean, in general, we have a situation now where we're in this dot-com, 2.0, that I would agree with you, but it's going to be a lot more than just that. I mean, we're seeing housing markets starting to pull back now materially. We're starting to see problems with the stock market. And, we're obviously in a really hyper euphoric stage in the economy, in a sense that unemployment by the fake government numbers are doing really well. But inflation is starting to pick up, and it's inevitable. We're getting to a breaking point in our economy, and things are going to be turning around. And I think it's going to be ultimately a problem for the US dollar. And I'd actually encourage many of your listeners to go to crushthestreet.com/dead, because we just wrote a report on this, the dollar and where it is right now. And, it's important that people read this.
I mean, right now we're seeing kind of a lot of tough economic talk, especially from the government saying we're doing better than ever. Unemployment is lower than ever. But really, if you just know basic math and if you're paying attention to the U.S. economy, you're like, whoa, these numbers don't add up. This does not make sense at all. I don't know how they're allowing all of this to go through and still prosper somehow, but there's really a lot of reckoning that does need to be happen, and I think it's only a matter of time until people kind of realize, like, okay, there should be alternatives that we should invest in. Now, a lot of people have invested in crypto as well as gold and silver as kind of an alternative to the dollar and the problems plaguing the dollar, but also with this recent Dow plunge, cryptos went down. What do you attribute to this kind of huge kind of lowering of prices of Bitcoin that just happened right now?
Yeah. Yeah, it's rough if you just got into cryptos in 2018, right? I mean, if you bought all in January of this year, you're probably down pretty big. And unfortunately, a lot of the volume that came in was towards the end of 2017 and, early 2018. And people are now really frustrated with it. But, we've been talking about Bitcoin and cryptocurrency now since 2012. We called Bitcoin the banker's worst fear. We kind of saw that to a certain degree last year as it really came into the limelight, and many of the banks and the regulators really started to clamp down on it. But I think, the cryptocurrency market is resilient. It's very natural. It's a free market response to what we saw in the '08 crisis. And it's an alternative. It's competition to the US dollar, which is such a beautiful thing. I mean, competition is good, except when it comes to the government, where they don't want any competition, right? It's kind of this odd dynamic. So what's going on right now? The crash, I would attribute this to, again, going back to what I said about stocks. Bitcoin was at $6,000 for quite a while, like a few months here. And most people were pretty happy and confident to say that we bottomed out. But as soon as we got a little bit of noise, this hard fork with Bitcoin Cash and, this noise that kind of spooked the markets, it continued to instill fear. And it was as opposed to the hard forks we saw in 2017, which added euphoria and added market cap to the environment. This is the opposite. This is the investor psychology of a bear market. And bear markets can be brutal. It's hard to, forecast how bad a bear market was going to be in January of this year, but we're starting to really see that. And bear markets perpetuate on themselves. And it's a good foreshadow of, I think, what we're going to see ultimately in stocks and in the economy, and how it's going to have a ripple effect really around the world. Because obviously, going back to stocks, this is something that is a lot more in terms of value and how much it's pervasive throughout the global economy. So what we're seeing right now in crypto is just the nature of a bear market. We're 80% almost. If Bitcoin gets to $4,000, we'll be 80% off of its high. And I'd say that's a pretty good bargain sale on Bitcoin. It's possible it goes lower than that. But, if you're looking to accumulate, now's not a bad time if you can stomach some more volatility.
Yeah. There's a lot of volatility, and 80%. That's a lot of percent. That's not the usual kind of economic numbers that people are used to in the stock market. These are huge fluctuations in kind of a Wild West scenario that is still figuring itself out. I'll tell you, Kenneth, I was actually on the Tinder date about a year ago, around December of last year, and I'm talking to this girl, and she's telling me how she's investing and taking out as much credit cards as she can to buy as much Bitcoin as she can. And I'm like, I don't think that's a good idea. I was like, I don't think that's smart. I don't think it's smart to get as many credit cards as you can to buy as much Bitcoin, especially right now when it's going as high as it is. And she's like, no, it'll be great. So there's a lot of information that a lot of people need to understand here. I always say at least invest 15%, around 15% in alternatives to the dollar, because it is a very volatile market as well, just to have a hedge just to have something to safeguard your assets, to safeguard your money. That's my personal take on it. But with everything moving forward, some people are saying that this kind of bear market with crypto is going to continue for 2 years. How do you see this unfolding and kind of the economic market unfolding, but also a lot of people fear-mongering that this Friday something major is going to happen? Now, I don't know if that's going to happen, but just want to know your kind of take on all the rumor mills and all the kind of future predictions, which are possible to predict, but would love to get your kind of understanding of these things moving forward.
Yeah, I think Bitcoin and cryptos are going to move faster. I mean, we saw the gold bear market play out for years, right? The high in 2011, and then it just take years to bottom out. And the end of December of 2015, and even now we're not in this like ultra bull market in the precious metals. So I think it's very possible that we see that here in crypto. But the good news is that crypto is not saturated yet. We need to see a lot more money enter the space. I mean, futures trading, ETFs, and a lot of big money needs to come into the space. So because of that, I think it can recover quicker than traditional markets, which are largely saturated. And that's the good news for crypto. Bitcoin and a lot of the ones that will rise to the top in this current environment. So I'm optimistic on that. I know a lot of people are saying 2019 could be the year for crypto. I'd have to say, though, that 2 years is probably a fair estimate to how long this can go on for. I mean, we've been now in this since the beginning of the year. What's another year and a half for a bear market to really shake everyone out, to really piss off the community, and to really capitulate? That's what markets do. Markets have a way of washing and rinsing investors. And we'll look back on what we're seeing in the crypto space for decades to come. And, there'll be case studies of people's psychology during this whole thing, how, even a lot of us got a lot of popularity on YouTube and on the internet because of crypto, and then how things kind of turned around the other way, and then those who stuck around through thick and thin. I mean, there's so much to be said about what we're seeing right now, and honestly, it's an exciting time to be alive.
Oh, extremely exciting. I mean, we've been talking about cryptos from the very early onset of it, ever since we heard it from Max Kaiser, and we always said, hey, it's a Wild West roller coaster. If you want to get on something crazy, I would say I definitely recommended it. Really appreciate all your analysis, Kenneth. Thank you so much for joining us here today. Anything else you want to say about crushthestreet.com or any other future economic outlooks?
I'll just mention this. Right now, we're looking at cannabis. I mean, there's not a lot of opportunities in the space right now, but if I can point anyone anywhere right now, I would say take a look at cannabis. Right now, we are profiling a company, Pure Global Cannabis, at Crush the Street. You can get the information at crushthestreet.com/pure for information on this. And I strongly recommend people to look into this because this is a wide open frontier. This is another Wild West. This $150 billion industry that's going from the black market to the legal market. This is absolutely huge. We're so far away from saturation, and I think there's a lot of opportunities available. So if you want more information on the things that I discussed here today, or investment ideas and macroeconomic thoughts, visit crushthestreet.com.
Yep. Again, the website will be in the description below. Kenneth, thank you so much for joining us, giving us your analysis and everything that is happening in this crazy, unfolding, unpredictable economic future that, of course, we all face. Really appreciate your time, and I hope you guys appreciated that video. If you did, share it with your friends and family members, and don't forget to stay tuned, subscribe, because we're going to have a lot more content coming here your way on youtube.com/we are change.